evolution, what we strive for as a species to reach our next step of development. Our superhero movies have come a long way from the magic and wonder of the Donner Superman films to the spectacle of the Marvel Cinematic Universe. No matter how you see it, one thing that cannot be denied is that that is not evolution. Greetings fanboys and fangirls, I'm Rodden of the Blockbuster Buster, and it's been a long time since I took on a superhero wannabe movie. You'd figure that after the massive success of the comic book movie boom, and with us getting about half a dozen movies every year based on actual factual comics, that there would be no room for wannabes, that the days of movies like Push and Jumper were behind us. But lo and behold, as another wannabe has slipped through the cracks, The Darkest Minds, or Kmart X-Men as some like to call it. Now some of you might want to protest and point out that this is actually based on the young adult book series by Alexandra Bracken. But we all know deep down that this movie was not greenlit based solely on the quality of the books, but instead to capitalize on the immense popularity of the genre, and because some of the creators of Stranger Things and The Arrival were attached to the project, something they made sure to point out on every poster and DVD cover. And don't you dare fall for it, because while Stranger Things and The Arrival might be great, this is most certainly not, and here's why. So our movie begins with an epidemic that is killing most of the children on Earth. Yup, that's how the movie begins, with child death. Was this written by the same guy that wrote the Tom Cruise Mummy? However, the children that are left alive start to develop superpowers. The president claims that they are on the verge of creating a cure, as his son, Gray, has been affected and he wants nothing more than to save his own child. But in actuality, they're just rounding up the remaining kids and sending them to concentration camps. Yup, dead kids and concentration camps. Yeah, that definitely puts me in the mood to watch a fun-filled action-adventure superhero film. And thus, we meet our protagonist, Ruby, who is celebrating her 10th birthday.
그렇잖아.
That's the one you wanted, right?
A keychain? That is her birthday present?
Lame.
And if you thought that that shitty birthday present marked the end of little Ruby's worries, you would be sadly mistaken. As that very night, her powers manifest themselves for the first time, and she accidentally erases herself from her parents' memories. And when her parents wake up and find this strange little girl in their home, they of course react in the most sensible way possible.
Where are we going?
Just wait right here. Just wait right there, okay? Just wait.
So Ruby's taken to a concentration camp, where she will be classified according to her power level. The classifications are as follows. Green is intelligence, which is not a superpower. Blues can move things with their mind. Yellows can control electricity. Reds can control fire. And oranges, like a Ruby, have the power of mind control. For some reason I thought those would be purple. Anyway, what I want to know is, what do the browns do?
Silent, but deadly.
Sorry I asked. But as it turns out, the oranges are the most dangerous and are terminated on sight. But before the good doctor can follow his directive, Ruby uses her powers on him, making him believe that she's actually a green, and forces him to classify her as thus. Or you can just use your powers to force him to free you so you can escape the concentration camp, but this is good too, I guess. So we cut to 6 years later and a much worse actor. No joke, the actress that played young Ruby in this was excellent, and I wish she would have played her all the way through. Nonetheless, Ruby spends the next 6 years dealing with douchebag guards and being subjected to torture, as all powered kids are vulnerable to subatomic frequencies. After one of these torture sessions, she wakes up to find that she's being treated by none other than Mandy Moore.
Watch out everybody, cause a union is coming. That's not good.
Who is actually a spy and is there to rescue her. But how is Ruby gonna get out of her handcuffs?
Abracadabra, bitch.
So Ruby and Mandy Moore escape together, as Mandy exposits that she is part of a secret group called the Children's League, who liberate kids from concentration camps. She liberated Ruby because she is one of the last living oranges, and can potentially help the League stop the government from detaining and torturing more kids. And thus, she hands her a tracking beacon that Ruby can use to call Mandy Moore if they were ever to be separated. Plot point! Unfortunately, almost immediately their relationship turns sour when Ruby meets another member of the League and has a vision of him fighting a teenager. This makes Ruby not trust them and she runs away. Hold on, just a quick question. In this vision, did you see that guy torturing kids and putting them in concentration camps? Because if you didn't, the League is still a better option! But Ruby don't give a shit, as she tries to make her getaway through a convenience store that by extreme coincidence, another powered kid just so happens to be hiding in. The kid, a yellow, uses her electric powers to ward off Ruby and make a run for it. Ruby follows her anyway. So if somebody rescues you from a concentration camp, you don't trust them, but if they try to murder you with lightning, you follow them. Huh. This is the same girl that fooled an entire concentration camp into thinking that she was a genius for 6 years. Ruby follows the electric kid to a van, where she meets more powered kids that are on the run. Liam, who can move things with his mind. Chubbs, a genius with the amazing ability to always sound like a fucking idiot.
Excuse me for hurting the feelings of a Nissan van.
And the yellow's name is actually Zoo. Yeah, the kid that was classified as a yellow is the Asian one. Now that is good old-fashioned Power Rangers racism! But the kids are not out of the woods yet, as they are not only being pursued by the League, but by a bounty hunter called Lady Jane. Oh, no, I'm sorry. The character in this movie is called Lady Jane. You're thinking of Lady J from G.I. Joe, who is most definitely not in this film. In fact, I can guarantee you with absolute certainty that nothing that cool will ever transpire in this movie. No, the Lady Jane in this movie is a 6-foot-tall, super-powered kid capturing badass, played by the real-life Valkyrie Gwendolyn Christie, best known for being on Game of Thrones and for suffering numerous humiliating defeats in the new Star Wars movies.
What do we do with her?
Is there a garbage chute? Trash compactor?
Yeah, there is.
So the chase is on. Liam uses his powers to block their pursuer's path. And he has Ruby drive in his place, even though she's never driven before, and the alleged genius is sitting right there.
If you think I rock these geeky-ass Coke bottle glasses for show?
After the action-packed chase scene, the movie pretty much turns into an even more boring version of The Walking Dead, as our heroes travel across the post-apocalyptic remains of society in search of a fabled paradise called East River. Easily avoided dangers, clumsy character development, and a very unnecessary romance ensues. Now, if it was the filmmaker's goal to make the characters likable and relatable through these scenes, then I can say beyond a shadow of a doubt that they failed! On a side note, Liam's tragic backstory includes him trying to escape a concentration camp by bending the fence open with his powers. Thank God they didn't rip off this very important scene from one of the X-Men movies, cause that would be embarrassing. Oh wait, they did. In fact, it was the first scene of the first movie. Halfway through this thing, I was just begging for Lady Jane to show up, capture them, and take them back to the concentration camp.
Hey, Liam.
Yes! And I am so glad that Gwendolyn Christie got to do something cool. Oh my god, I hope she doesn't get defeated in a ridiculously humiliating way like she does in the Star Wars movies, because that would suck.
You're gonna walk into that forest. You're gonna keep walking.
Honestly, I don't know what's worse, that this keeps happening to Gwendolyn Christie, or that they felt they need to rip off a scene from the worst X-Men movie.
Walk until your feet bleed. And then keep walking.
Thanks to Chubbs' genius, in a very convoluted series of coincidences, the kids discover the location of East River. There, they are introduced to the community leader, who is none other than Gray, the president's son, aka Patient Zero, the first kid to be experimented on in the pursuit of a cure for the so-called superpowered epidemic. Gray, like Ruby, is an orange, and he used his powers to escape the labs and start his own super-secret superpowered kid utopia. Huh. You used your powers to escape? Huh, makes sense, or at least it makes more sense than pretending like you don't have powers and just staying in a concentration camp for 6 years, until a non-powered person just coincidentally happened to come by to rescue you. Now that would be dumb as fuck. While there, Gray offers to teach Ruby how to control her powers. Wait, she needs help controlling her powers? But she can control them just fine when she used them on the scientist, and then on Lady Jane. Ugh, I wish she'd practice using them on the asshole that produced this movie.
And you're an asshole.
I am an asshole.
Suffice it to say, Ruby agrees to be trained by Gray, but things go south and fast. As it turns out, Gray only wants to train her so he can learn how she can erase herself from people's memories. When Ruby refuses to explore that power, since it cost her her family, Gray tries to force her into it, which is symbolized in their mindscape as an attempted rape scene. This was based on a young adult book series, and thus far we have child death, concentration camps, and attempted underage rape. Yeah, you don't see that on Percy Jackson. And with no shock to anyone, Gray turns out to be the big bad, as he has been in control of everything all along. His dad, the concentration camps, and East River, using the system to scout and find kids to recruit for his superpowered army. An orange, lying, former White House resident. That sounds like the most vile supervillain ever. And thus, a team of concentration camp soldiers show up to round up the kids. It all comes down to a meeting of the minds between Ruby and Gray.
Listen all you mother...
Chubbs saves Ruby from the explosion, but gets injured in the process. Oh no, not Chubbs, that great character. With Chubbs in desperate need of medical attention, Ruby has no choice but to use the plot point to call Mandy Moore. The League helps them, but with one condition. Ruby and Liam, the most powerful among them, have to join the League's cause, and have to fight in the upcoming war to help liberate other children. That sounds pretty good. Free room and board, 24-hour protection from Gray and his regime, and in return you get to help other kids. But unfortunately, Liam doesn't see it that way. His response is, "Wah, the League is just as bad as the government. Wah, they shouldn't turn us into weapons. Wah, we're not soldiers. Wah." Now, I apologize if that came across a little obnoxious, but the fact of the matter is that that is pretty much 90% of Liam's dialogue throughout the entire frickin' movie. Just whining about the League and how they just want them to fight their war for them. And guys, this is almost every fricking scene. So technically, I just condensed 15 minutes of really annoying dialogue into just a few seconds. You're welcome. Knowing that Liam won't budge, Ruby decides to wipe herself from his memory, so he will leave willingly. Oh, how bad is this scene? Let me count the ways. For starters, there is absolutely nothing the League can do to keep Liam there. he and Ruby are more powerful than the entire League, so I don't see how they could impose their will upon them. And secondly, if all they need from the League is Chubb's medical attention, Ruby can just mind control them into caring for Chubbs. And once he's out of hospice, they can make their getaway together. So yes, the League has no leverage against them. Now, there's a chance that this scene is supposed to be a big turning point for Ruby as a character, the moment where she decides to stop running and start fighting. Unfortunately, that's not even remotely clear in this scene. Not to mention that her and Liam's relationship never feels serious enough for her sacrifice to carry any weight. It always feels like they just met, and that all they feel for one another is a childhood crush and nothing more. So you feel no emotional attachment to this scene. It just feels very... So Liam runs and Ruby joins the resistance, in what appears to be a leadership position, during an introductory ceremony where she heroically identifies herself as an orange by painting the color on her forehead. Yeah, this is a very triumphant moment in which our heroes willingly paint themselves with the colors that their oppressors used to label them. This movie's the darkest doldrum of dramatic dorkiness. The action sequences are good and the supporting characters show a lot of potential. But unfortunately, their quality is diminished by the lame lead characters, pointless subplots, and a very dull narrative that for the most part just reminds me of other shows and movies that I would rather be watching instead of this. And because this is based on a book series, its sequel begs a lot, and I do mean a lot. But nothing about this movie makes me wish that there was more story, or hope in any way that there's another chapter just around the corner so I can find out about the superpowered war or how Ruby will eventually lead humanity to victory. To the contrary, while watching, the only constant dark thought in my darkest mind is the innate desire for the TV screen to go dark, so I wouldn't have to watch this movie anymore. Let's do this. Darkest minds, the brightest light. Busted. Buster powers deactivated. I've been saving one of these with your name on it for a long